Hi, True Avatars, and welcome back to the 8th episode of True Avatars, a queer video game podcast. I am your host, Zoe Wild, transgender and bisexual as ever. My pronouns are she, her. Every week, I do my best to bring you something queer-related in our podcast. This week, our topic is kind of, queer-like adjacent. It's not really any big secret that queer people are disproportionately more likely to be less fortunate than the rest of the population. Financial stability and independence is tough for a lot of people, so I thought, with Black Friday and Boxing Day and the holiday sales coming up, I thought it would be helpful to do an entire podcast around navigating various sales and getting the best bang for your buck. And even if you have a few extra dollars in your wallet to spare, who the hell doesn't love a good sale? So that's this week's topic, a queer's guide to navigating holiday sales. Let's get you those games and let's help you find the best way to find the best sale price. And to join me, I've got two regular guests, and they are, get this, both named Amy. Amy squared, if you will. So first up, we have Amy Lynn, a transgender lesbian whose pronouns are she, her. Welcome back, Amy Lynn.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
And second up, returning from a long week of not being on the podcast, is Ekami from Twitch, who also goes by Amy. Ekami is a bisexual woman who, as we know, is exploring and considering pansexuality and demisexuality. Welcome back, Ekami.
Thank you for having me. Again.
So I think both Amy's have unique and distinct enough voices for listeners to tell them apart, but I will be referring to Amy Lynn by her full name, Amy Lynn, and Ekami as Ekami for the purposes of keeping everything straight this week. Well, as straight as we can be on this gay-ass podcast. So this week, we'll break the ice with what we've been playing, power our way through the news, and then we'll discuss this week's segment, saving your gay little dollars so you can play your gay little games. So, let's start with Amy Lynn. What have you been playing this week?
So aside from, I guess, what now is the regular of Pokemon Go and the Pokemon TCG Pocket, I have been playing around with the, Sonic side of Sonic X Shadow Generations. I mentioned at my last appearance on the podcast that I've been really focused on that Shadow side. I got to the Infinite, that's a Sonic villain. I got to the infamously difficult final boss of the Sonic Generation side and was frustrated, so I'm just playing around with some of the other levels. But that's about it on my end.
Ekami?
Yeah, I've been... So I've played... this week, I've mostly just played Doomsday Paradise with my friend, which I talked about on last week's episode. But in terms of some demos that I tried out, I tried a whole bunch yesterday that I really enjoyed, and I ended up adding 4 or 5 games to my wish list. They were The Star Named Eos, Slender Threads, and Sorry We're Closed. The Star Named Eos is a kind of like a point-and-click puzzle game where you're this young boy who might be a young adult by the time that time has passed, but he's having a lot of memories about being a little kid and being with his mom, and his mom is a photographer, and you're kind of also taking up that interest, and you're following a series of letters that your mom has sent you in the mail, and it was just really sweet and lovely. Slender Threads is a point-and-click mystery adventure type thing with a little bit of horror dusting all over it, and it was really neat. And Sorry We're Closed is not really a game not really a type of game I would usually play in terms of the genre, but it's a survival horror that is super duper queer and so cool. I almost don't want to describe too much of it because of how much I enjoyed the demo, and I believe the game came out like a matter of days ago when we're recording the podcast. So, super would recommend those 3.
So you mentioned Sorry We're Closed is already available, the full game is already out. Are the other 2 games also available to purchase, or are they still in development?
I believe I know Slender Threads is coming out in February 2025, and I'm not sure about The Star Named Eos. I don't think it's out yet, but I think it might be coming out this year.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
As for me, who has time to play games, our Heat was out all week, so I was just trying to I could barely move. I was so cold, and I had no time to my hands were cold enough when I was working from home on my laptop as a video editor. So my cold hands going on a controller and playing tense games wasn't gonna happen. But my partner and I went to this cute little bookshop / comic book store in Toronto yesterday. It's called The Beguiling. If you're ever in Toronto or you live here, I highly recommend checking it out. It's a cute bookshop. It's very queer friendly. There's queer staff. So it's very safe space, and they have lots of good stuff. They have like children's book, they have comic books, adult books. Like it's a small shop, but like it's also very thorough. Like they have a lot of stuff, and they have a really, really, really cool art book section full of like not just art books, but like game guides and like other like imported Japanese books. And it's like a small section, but like, and they have like one of each copy of everything. But like it's very thorough. Like we saw books that we barely saw in Japan there that were imported, so that was really cool. But while I was there. And I know you can pretty much buy this anywhere, but I picked up the Minish Cap manga, The Legend of Zelda. I was really curious. I was like, how does Link translate to being in a manga? Does he just like sit there in every panel, just like his mouth closed with a stoic look on his face? And actually, the whole manga, not just like Link is super sassy in this manga, but also so is literally every other character. Like everyone is just like a bitch. And everyone is just kind of going at each other in a friendly, self-aware kind of way. But anyway, Minish Cap is one of my favorite Zelda games. It might even be my favorite Zelda game, at least in the 2D side of things. And they really captured the charm and the excitement of Minish Cap, even though it's only like, I want to say 10 chapters. So it's like one volume of manga. So it's kind of like really packed together into one story. And I haven't finished it yet, but it really does cover the game's events super well. And I don't recommend reading any of these mangas if you haven't played the games. I think it would spoil a lot of the, it would spoil all the dungeons first off, but it would also spoil like some of the puzzle solving elements to it, knowing where to go and stuff like that. And I think like I look up a lot of solutions to Zelda puzzles when I feel dumb, but also I try first. So like I'm choosing to spoil it. But like if you were to just read through, because the volume of manga I bought came with Minish Cap and Phantom Hourglass, and I haven't played the second one yet. So I'm not going to read Phantom Hourglass until I play it. But now because I want to read the manga, I think that's going to fast track when I play Phantom Hourglass finally. So
I do want to hype up the Beguiling a little bit more. They're a main sponsor of TCAF, the Toronto Comic Arts Festival, which happens in Toronto every year, hopefully every year. I know they're looking for a space. Yeah. But they're an amazing place. They support independent artists. So they're one of the main stores in the city where you can buy sort of independent publications and zines. They're super friendly. Like it's a big masking culture in the store. If you're
you have to have a mask to go in. It's required.
Yeah. So it's if you're immunocompromised, it's a safe space. If you're just afraid of the ever lingering pandemic or just illnesses in general, it's a safe space. It's a sex worker friendly space. I cannot say enough great things about it. Like during the lockdowns, they had a really cute Peanuts themed sort of booth type thing so that people could still explore and get comics. Nice. And they have a whole kids mini store connected to it. Yeah, the only complaint I would say is that they're downtown and far away from where I live, but great. I love the place.
Yeah, actually, I don't think. Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't know if I've been to the Beguiling before. Maybe I have, but I'm gonna be in Toronto a number of times in December. Yeah, in December. So maybe I'll pop in. That sounds awesome.
I think you'd love it. Okay, let's move on to the news. And once again, I hate saying this every week. I leave this in my show notes about nothing in the way of queer news and video games. And I mean, it's nice when there is, but obviously we can't have that every week. But there is some interesting news this week, more than I thought there would be, because I feel like it's been a slow fall for video game news. Like a lot of big stuff has come out. So Nintendo's been super quiet, and Sony's obviously, as we talked about last week, has been super quiet, and like Xbox has been like kind of doing their thing, but like I don't know. Xbox is also like, we have 100 games coming out, and then like here's like 3. So, but anyway, I'm really excited about this first news story because it's about video game preservation, and I'm like huge on like lost media and video game preservation. But the game store / game service Good Old Games, better known as GOG, or some people call it GOG, has created a game preservation program. So something you may not know about me is like I'm big on finding lost media and preservation. When I worked on reality TV a few years ago, I was actually able to preserve an unfinished episode for this renovation TV show. And I know it's just like a reality renovation show, but like I made sure there was a clean and as complete as possible extended copy of exported copy of the episode. It was also extended because it was about the same runtime as a regular episode, except it was like only half the content. So like basically, without saying too much, the project they were working on in the episode never got finished in time to go to air. So the episode was just kind of shelved. But I was like, well, even though this episode will probably never air, I would really like to see it like preserved in some way, because like the way these things go on a lot of shows, and I'm sure video games too, and pretty much anywhere, is like it's really easy in the hustle and bustle of meeting deadlines to just like throw aside certain things, and like it would be really easy for like all the work done on this episode to just fall by the wayside. And then at the end of the day, like when the show's aired and it's kind of being forgotten, and they go to like package it up and like basically like store on what they call them LTOs, they store the episodes and like all the like raw media and like all the unused content, and they kind of like package it away. But like generally, because storage takes up a lot of space, like something might just get missed, or the person like doing the work might just think like, hey, and I'm not speaking for the company that I worked at, but like in general, someone might say, hey, like we had a bunch of episodes and one of them wasn't like finished, and like because it's not finished, it's not airing worthy, so let's just like kind of throw it away. So like even though the raw media might still live there, like the finished, like all the work that was done on it might get lost. So I made sure there was an exported copy of what was finished, and it wasn't, I would not describe it as finished, but as finished as it could be. I made sure that the Avid project and all the related media inside the Avid project was consolidated, and I'm not going to sit here and explain consolidation because it would take 20 minutes, and this is a video game podcast, but basically like everything you would need to watch the episode in Avid was available. And yeah, I'm not even sure if like I wasn't there when they like stored and preserved all this content and like put it away in like cold storage, which is where LTO tapes go. But I did make sure that like if they wanted to have access to this content in the future, the rights holder would be able to do so. And even though like it was a renovation TV show, I felt really proud of myself, because I was like, if I was working on, I think any media is valuable no matter what it is, even if it's like good or something you may not like. I know people don't hold reality TV in the highest regard, but anyway, that's all a lot to say, is that I care about preservation, I care about lost media. But a big thing about video games is for preservation is compatibility. So as games get older on PC and Windows and Mac OS, and like these like OSs are updated and like new versions are made, older games stop working on them. And for a variety of reasons, right? Like developers, they might not care about updating the game, or the developer is no longer around to maintain support for it, or maybe the game isn't making any money anymore, so like updating it is not worth the time and money that could be spent developing a new game. So basically, I'm trying to find my note here about exactly what they did. Okay, so from their website, they say, if a game is part of the preservation program, it means that we commit our own resources to maintaining its compatibility with modern and future systems. It also means that the GOG version of this game is the best anywhere, which is a bold statement. For a game to join the GOG preservation program, we run it through extensive quality testing and often apply custom improvements to ensure compatibility and quality of life improvements. We are launching the program with over 100 games, and over the next few months we will continue to add more. What can you expect from games in the GOG preservation program? 1. You can expect it to work on current and future popular PC configurations. 2. Be sure that this version is the best and most complete version available anywhere, including compatibility, manuals, other bonus content, but also DLCs and even features that are missing in other editions. 3. Access GOG's tech support if you encounter technical issues with running the game. And 4. As with all titles in our catalog, always keep access to their offline installers, granting you the power to safeguard them how you want. So some of the notable games were The Witcher Enhanced Edition, so the first Witcher game, Roller Coaster Tycoon, Cyberpunk 2077, Fallout 4, Diablo plus Hellfire, the original Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3, all 3 Baldur's Gate games. So like there's a bunch of good queer games in there too. And that's like a very short list of the 100 games that were in there. And I thought they would be like obscure games from like 20 years ago that were like lesser known or like people might not even heard of. But there were like pretty big games there from pretty big developers that they're like committing to preserving. The thing about GOG games is they're DRM free, as far as I know. So as long as you have the game install files, you can keep them forever. So now you can have them forever, and in theory, they will work forever, assuming that GOG keeps up the program and continues to update for compatibility in the future. So this is far from perfect, and it would be very easy for this to not last forever. But it's miles better than what Nintendo does, right? Because they drip feed their games, they emulate them poorly, and they withhold games that would be less than ideal on newer platforms. So like DS games never come to the Switch. Like you'll never see Nintendogs on the Switch, because the way Nintendogs is meant to be played is like with a second screen, and that's a touch screen. And like Nintendo they won't think about adding that game to the Switch. So I'm curious what both of your thoughts are. Maybe we can start with Ekami.
Sure. That's really great news. As someone who has, even done like a bit of schooling in archiving and done a bit of archival work for museums and stuff, like I also have an appreciation for that kind of work. And it's really exciting. I feel like it's an exciting program. I would be interested to know, I mean, I don't know if they would release this information, but just even to know like the selection process for like how selection, but also like what games they're able to get on there. Cause I'm sure they have to go through a lot of hoops to probably get these games on the list. And maybe they don't, I don't really quite know, but, I would be interested in that, as well as, I can't really think of an equivalent program for video game preservation that I've heard of that does this, because I'm also wondering about maintaining it over time. But I don't know. I think it is a good step in the right direction. I mean, there's a lot of games that I've not been able to, that I want to play really badly, but I either missed out on them when they were the big hot new game for a specific console, or they just were never ported. Like one game that I keep thinking like, oh, I definitely want to play this, but the only way I can play it is through emulation at this point, is Xenogears, because there hasn't been any Gears port to my knowledge since its release on the PlayStation, I think. Might have been PS1. Just stuff like, I guess to have more access to that kind of games, and like, have more access without jumping through all the hoops is really nice. Do we know if it's because I haven't read too much into it, do we know if, is it like do they plan on making it like a subscription or any kind of thing? Like a library that you pay to access?
I don't see anything here about that. And in fact, given that GOG is very much about games preservation and like making sure you own the files, even if it's a digital file, making sure that file is yours and they can't take it back. I doubt, it doesn't seem like the kind of company that would ever do a subscription service. And if they have their own subscription service, this doesn't seem to be part of it. I think it's just that if you have the license to the game, now you can expect to be able to, like, if you bought Baldur's Gate 3 on GOG, you should be able to play it for the next however many years they're going to try to support it.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Amy Lynn?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an amazing, like, initiative and project. I remember for the longest time I was searching for what I came to learn was abandonware for the Macintosh. My elementary school had like a computer teacher who was incredibly forward in computer teaching for the early 90s. So we had, it was mostly a Mac lab. There were a few PCs in there, but there was a game for like a really early Macintosh called JetFrog. And like, it was really hard to find online, like just any information about it for the longest time. And it wasn't like a big game that I could sort of easily search for or explain and find. But it's online now. You can search it and find it. But I think that having the information, ideally that, a library is formed so that these games are accessible in some ways, but, failing that, like just making sure that they're around for the possibility of a library being set up at some point is important. I think when it comes to game preservation, one of the things that kind of disappoints me is that games for, systems like the Wii or the DS, I'm less confident that they will be preserved. Like I'm thinking about all the touch-based WiiWare games that are probably lost to time, and I get a little sad about that. But I'm sure the code can be preserved, but can the gameplay be reliably preserved?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's all the stuff with that goes along with the game, like documentation, like developer documents, like stuff like that. I think it was a Kit and Krista podcast episode early on where they said like when they were trying to like preserve something or like archive something, like a lot of stuff would just be sitting like in a pile on someone's desk, either in Nintendo of America or Nintendo Japan, and it just like that's true in any industry, is like while you're doing stuff, like at the end of the day, everyone is so focused on getting to the final deliverable product that like all the little bits and pieces that don't directly affect that final product, they fall by the wayside really easily. When you're on a like think about when you're at work and you're on a 9 to 5 and you're like doing anything or in any job anywhere, like your goal is always like, here's the thing that everyone's going to see that I've done. And like the little bits and pieces, the show your work aspect of things that you might do in like a math class, like you don't need to do that part because people only care about the deliverable. So yeah, I mean, I just think preservation is just tough as it is. So
yeah, and like, oh sorry,
no, go ahead. No,
I was I was just gonna say like talking about like just the Nintendo aspect too of like if like Nintendo games would be a part of this list. I mean, I think back a little bit to like, I mean, Nintendo's kind of similar version of like, hey, we're gonna try to preserve or port over older games so that they can be played on the newest system is Nintendo Switch Online. And I mean, that's great for like a bunch of, games that I haven't been able to play. Again, it's a different situation, of course, because like that is a system that's only like it's a subscription service that's only going to be at this time. It's only present for the Switch, and that could change with the next console or the next few because they just, there's always an opportunity to make money, as much as I love Nintendo. So yeah, I am genuinely curious, like how many games, like maybe they have like 100 games is phenomenal. I'm curious, like I'm just super curious about their process, like what games are going to get picked. I don't know.
Yeah, there's not a ton of information here, and the thing that when they say over the next few months we will continue to add more, that concerns me, because while it's great they're going to spend a few months adding more games, and I'm not going to knock the fact that they're going to even spend like, let's say 3 more months adding like, let's say 10 more games, for example, and that's just, I have no idea if that's the number. Don't quote me on that, but like if I was running this program, I would really, really want to just like keep it going for as many years as possible. Even if I wasn't able to keep preserving, like keep updating games that are already in the program. And that's probably why maybe they can't add more than like, let's say 120 games, because you have to keep updating those games.
Yeah.
And like clearing those games and making sure the developers are okay with you updating those games and keeping them DRM free and for multiple PC configurations. But then the bloating, I just realized this, like the bloating of it, like you add 300 games to the library. That's 300 games you now have to pay people for. They're not going to make any money off this.
Yeah. Like I'm wondering about capacity. Like,
yeah.
So obviously they probably have like a base like endpoint or just an idea of like how much they can do. And maybe it'll balloon into other things. Like maybe if it's popular enough, maybe they'll have some funding on even just like like some kind of governmental level. I don't know. I know,
or
like
it'll
for
inspire other groups.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, I was just gonna say like, or it could inspire other groups to do the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's what I would hope. Yeah, or even maybe not necessarily groups, because there are groups that aren't like industry, like corporations that are making money. Like the Video Game History Foundation is trying to do this too, but they keep running into red tape. But like what I'd really like to see is like when we say other groups, like I'd like just the rights holders, the people who made the game in the first place, just keep updating it. I'm sorry, but like, and it'll never happen, because again, like let's say Ubisoft or Nintendo, like they have thousands of games in their library from over like 40, 50 years. So actually 50 years is probably generous. It's probably closer to 40 for most of these companies. But like every year you make more games. Let's say you release 5 to 10 new games. Then every year that's 5 to 10 new games you have to keep updating every year to make sure they're compatible with whatever system they're on. So I understand why they don't do it. It's just Nintendo's attitude towards it, I guess, and other companies' attitudes. It's just like doesn't inspire faith in me. So
that's fair. Yeah.
Let's move on, because we have a lot of news, and then I want to get to our segment of this week. But something that I added in last minute, because it just kind of hit the internet, is that DLCs, expansions, remasters, and remakes are now eligible for Game of the Year at Game Awards. So Jeff Keighley announced that DLC, basically this is the example that everyone is using, is Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, which is an expansion to Elden Ring, which came out 2 years ago. And it's not a standalone game. It cannot be purchased without the main game. Is now a contender for Game of the Year nomination and potentially winner. So nominations come out tomorrow on November 18th, and today is November 17th, just for posterity. And that's the day we're recording. And I'm just curious, how do we feel about DLCs being nominated for Game of the Year?
Yeah, like, I mean, as I was listening, I was just like, okay, so if I was sitting down and watching something like the Game Awards, that would mean that, of course, DLCs would be up against games that were built from the ground up and, different IPs and stuff. I feel like they should have their own category, not necessarily just Game of the, like, not, I don't know, like, I don't feel great about it initially.
Amy Lynn?
Yeah, I feel similarly. I mean, with the Game Awards in general, I feel very apathetic towards, like, it's, for me, like, all the world premiere jokes and Cranky Kong's here, and there's an interview with a Muppet, which is delightful.
Right.
There's a giant Razer mascot for some reason. Like, it's kind of become, like, a joke version of E3 in some ways. Like, I enjoy it, but not for what it is or what it's supposed to be. It's become more like all the funny parts of E3, like $599 or what's his name, Mr. Caffeine, or I forget her first name, is Aisha Taylor, like the weird personalities of celebrities crossing over with video games, like that's, and mispronouncing obscure Japanese games, like,
oh yeah,
that, like, the only, I think, positives about the Video Game Awards are those developers who come up and give really meaningful speeches and stories, but then they're cut off sometimes. So,
sorry, Amy Lynn, you're out of time. No. I need you to get off the stage.
Like, that, that exactly, like, that's heartbreaking. So, like, in regards to, like, the, like, remakes and remasters being eligible, I'm like, who cares? Like, whatever.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah. Interesting, nonetheless.
So let's move on to the next headline, because we still have 3 more to get through I'd like to talk about. But we don't have to spend a lot of time, as I wrote in my notes for this one. But basically, Xbox said they're making a handheld. It's not coming anytime soon. Like, they didn't say anything. They just said they're looking into it. And curious how you guys feel about an Xbox handheld.
I've only ever owned a 360, and it was basically a DVD player and machine for dancing games. So I don't really have, like, good for them. Why not?
Amy or Ekami?
Yeah, I've played. I mean, I have grown up with an Xbox 360 and an Xbox, like, OG brick, mostly because my brother played them when we were young. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's unsurprising that they would want to get into the handheld system. I mean, I'm pretty sure at this point their two big competitors have had handheld systems, and obviously, like, there's a certain level of success that, if a certain type of, like, handheld console is really, like, won over everyone in terms of just the games that they continue to make for it, or just the fact that it's lasted so long. So I mean, I guess I would say, yeah, same thing. Good for them. I would be interested if, like, I mean, it might potentially kind of make me turn around a little bit on interest in Xbox consoles and such, just because I don't typically have an interest in buying an Xbox. I'm just kind of a Nintendo and PlayStation kind of person, but yeah, I would be interested to see if they make anything that's really, really, I don't know, just like something that would convince me, like, wow, you know what? I think I really would like to buy this system, and, like, something that's a big wow factor. Don't know what it is, but maybe they will have it.
Yeah, I want to see something nice from Xbox. I think handheld gaming is the best kind of gaming you can do. Like I like sitting on a PC, I like sitting on my couch, like looking at my TV, but I like handheld gaming. Like I like just like cuddling up and curling up like in a bed, or even on transit, and you got your handheld for a couple hours when you're on a long bus ride or something, or like on the plane. But I don't know. I think with Xbox trying to go third party a little bit more and like releasing games like Indiana Jones on the PlayStation like 6 months after it comes out on the Xbox, like I just don't think Xbox hardware is gonna sell, because the Series S and X don't sell already. And I have a Series S and I like it, but like realistically speaking, I have it for like the occasional exclusive. I had it for Game Pass when I was still paying for that, but then I have so many games to play, I don't have time to play anything on Game Pass either. And then maybe a game I want is cheaper on Xbox than it is on like PlayStation or Nintendo, so I'll buy it there. But like, I just don't think Xbox brings anything other than maybe some software to the market that's worth it. So
yeah.
Let's move on to the second last news story, and this is the last big one. And I have like I want to get on my soapbox a little bit about this too. But this comes from Video Games Chronicle, because I couldn't actually read the Bloomberg source, because you have to pay, and I don't like paying for news. I think it's stupid. I'm sorry. I know people have to make money, but I think information should be free. So I got it from Video Games Chronicle. Hundreds of Bethesda employees strike over remote work and outsourcing policies. So this is good news. Video game workers are fighting back against some of the injustices happening in the midst of all the layoffs and turmoil in games industry. So basically the details are that Bethesda employees in Maryland and Texas offices went on a one-day strike on November 13th. So they're protesting the fact that the remote work requests are being denied to limit the number of quality assurance QA testing jobs that are allowed to be outsourced. So I want to be clear, especially in a world right now, in all industries that's prioritizing record profits in the same breath as laying people off so they can make those record profits even more record-breaking. Striking is a good thing. And I'm tired of pretending that it's not. Every day, people having the power to bring a corporation to its knees for collective bargaining is a good thing. And I'm tired, I'm seriously sick of hearing anti-union stuff on the internet anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
I hear so much anti-labor organizing talk on the internet, and I feel people don't know the history of unions and strikes and why they even exist in the first place. Because I think sometimes unions sound a little silly, and they're occasionally there's things you're well, why is a union protecting this guy who clearly is a terrible person? And yes, unions are not perfect. I understand that. But 100 years ago, our ancestors organized, and I say that I think it sounds kind of funny, but your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents, people like us 100 years ago, organized to fight for things like the 5-day work week, an 8-hour workday, lunch breaks, better safety. Okay, people were dying on the job. People were people were working for free. It was so close to slave labor in some ways that without strikes, we wouldn't even be where we are. Everything we have right now that is a good thing on this planet was fought for with blood, sweat, and tears, and that includes good labor conditions. So I think the anti-union sentiment, all these basically all the fascism in the world right now is only coming back because we're allowing it. We've become complacent, and I think unions are a good thing, okay? Our fight right now is with the 1% rich and famous for taking advantage of us, okay? 100 years ago, they were doing the same thing. They were underpaying our great-grandparents. They were taking advantage of them. They were getting them injured. They were getting them killed. They didn't care when they went home. We would not be where we are in terms of labor rights if we did not have unions. And I think we need to keep fighting for better things, like the 4-day work week, longer lunch periods, shorter work hours, more money, okay? Because, yeah, you can say, oh, well, if we raise the rates of minimum wage or we raise wages, you can argue that, that furthers inflation. Sure, maybe, but, only because we allow the corporations that pay us more to also then raise the cost of everything. And, yeah, everything keeps inflating. And I know inflation is a lot more complicated than that, but we are allowing people to take advantage of us. And anyway, so I think even this small strike where people are fighting against the remote work, people should be able to work remotely. Okay. And now because people pay huge money on these big offices and in central hubs, and people want, and I understand there's benefits to people going into work, by the way, because then other businesses make money. It's good for the economy. But also I think forcing people to do stuff they don't want to do. Okay. Remote work can still be good. We just need to rejig our economy for it. There are things locally that could be good for us too. We could give people longer lunch breaks to then go take a drive or take a walk in their hometown where they are working remotely from, to then go to these places where they can have lunch, to go grab a coffee, go to the stores. So I think it's good that they did this, and I'm a little bit sad it was only one day for a strike. I don't even know if I didn't see any follow-ups, by the way, so I don't know if it worked or if there's even any results yet, but you know, and the other thing too that unions got us is like, and I think insurance is also a scam. I think insurance is stupid. I think everything should be paid for by the government. I think eye care, healthcare, dental care, all of those, like prescriptions, everything. You need it. It should be free, personally. But also a lot of these things that aren't free are at least covered because a lot of jobs have insurance and benefits. So, and people that came before us fought for that stuff, and we need to keep fighting for things too, or we're going to lose it and not gain anything new in the process either. So sorry, that's my soapbox. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel similarly in regards to the concept and the idea of unions, because I mean I've definitely heard a lot of anti-union discourse that typically involves the way the union is run, or like the people who might be, you know, weirdly kind of the decision makers in a union if they're not making good decisions. But again, what you're saying is that a lot of that chalks up to like the union needs, like, it's not run well, and it needs to, like, the very basics, or the basis, I should say, of the concept itself is to expand the, like, workers' rights, and to ensure that, you know, like, if you're making sure that your workers are able, like, you know, that their mental health is good, that their physical health is good, that they're able to, you know, work and not feel that they're just, you know, day-to-day living, and that their work doesn't care about them, it does ultimately create a better experience. And I don't know too much about the video game industry's state in terms of unionization. I know for, like, on the animation side of things, there really isn't a whole lot in place, unless you're like a really big animation company, I think. But yeah, it's I would hope that something would come from it at the collective bargaining table if Microsoft did meet with them to make some amends. But yeah, just this is bringing me a little bit back to when I did Canadian labor studies for my undergrad. So yeah, it's a very interesting and tricky path, that's for sure.
Milan?
Although, you know, I know that there are, you know, mathematical, computer, technological aspects of video games, I do still consider it a creative medium, just like, you know, animation, voice acting, acting in general, and all of these groups that have had, you know, actions over the last few years, especially, you know, with the rise of generative AI and other issues. So I really feel that this is sort of more important now than ever. You know, there are, you know, practical and good uses of AI that I've read about when it comes to video games. But the fact that, you know, a lot of this, you know, if people, I guess, complain, they might just be fired and replaced with an algorithm that makes a background based off of stolen backgrounds from themselves, or from the previously fired employees. It's sad, and it's, you know, I think you said it really well, like, there's a lot of really important reasons why unions and, you know, similar, like, organizations exist. And yeah, I'm really glad that these people were able to take some sort of action, and I hope that it has some effect.
100%. So one last news story, and then we'll jump right into our money saving segment. And this is just a follow-up because we did talk about Pokemon TCG Pocket a few weeks ago. So basically the news is that trading is finally coming to TCG Pocket in January 2025. The only downside is, in typical Pokemon fashion, the feature will be limited to certain cards, because of course it is. But at least it is coming, and it's coming a lot sooner relative to launch than it did to Pokemon Go, which took just under 2 years after it launched. So 3 months versus 2 years, I'll take it, even if the feature is fairly limited. Have either of you, I think Amy Lynn, you mentioned at the start of the podcast, you've been playing TCG Pocket.
Yeah, I still play it daily. I do have to admit that some of the luster has worn off. Once you get like I've only won one online battle, and that was because I went second and I put a Ralts down, and everyone thought I was going to have some sort of scary Mewtwo deck. So and it's because the other person forfeited.
Oh.
So aside from that, like a lot of the advanced, challenges for the battles are they seem a little bit too luck based if you're using the rental decks or a good enough, I guess, pre-made deck or a good enough homemade, personally made deck. As far as like the collection aspect of it, I find myself a little bit listful. I rarely get a new card when I'm opening one of the 2 free packs a day. So the other sort of announcements that the developers released that there are new cards coming is, more exciting for me because even if I spend money, or not money, but even if I spend the hourglasses, I can open 3 or 4 packs a day and not get any new cards, and I'm still missing quite a few for the Kanto decks. I only have 1 Gardevoir, so I can't get that cool Gardevoir emote, or not emote, like display picture. I still think it's a great app. I've just I've run out of a lot of things that I'm excited to do.
That's fair. Akemi, have you been playing TCG Pocket?
I have not. I was listening a little bit to the podcast episode that you and your partner did on TCG Pocket, and I have not finished it. But I understand the general gist of the game. So I'm interested in probably downloading it. I admit I haven't played like a proper, I guess, game of like just Pokemon the card game. And I mean, we have a number of cards in a binder, but my brother never played. Actually, he just liked collecting the cards. And only recently I've been getting into more, just like different card games like Magic the Gathering and everything. So, but I really like that these apps are coming out, and games and things that, in my opinion, they can very much help with learning the basics of the game. I know there's an online version of Magic the Gathering which is really good about teaching you about certain cards. And I feel like TCG Pocket is probably something similar, although I do understand that there's some differences that the app version is between this and the actual game. But I'll probably give it a shot. Exciting to hear that trading is going to be available pretty soon.
Yeah, it's entirely free. I mean, there are obviously things you can spend money on, but if you just want to open 2 packs a day, and the way the game starts you off, like introducing you to everything, it gives you so much like of the currencies and like the things you can like the hourglasses to open more packs. Like you'll have like 150 hourglasses within the first like 48 hours of playing, and that's not like 48 full hours of like constant playing. I just mean like you open the game up, you do all the starter things. In 12 hours, you open another pack, and then it gets you to do some other things. Every 12 hours, you do a few things. And within 48 hours of those various openings of the app, you'll have a bunch of resources to be able to spend to open more packs. So.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So let's move on to our segment. I'm very super excited about this because it's very light. It's fun. I like talking about deals. I like hunting for deals. I like shopping. Retail therapy is very good. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of spending money in terms of like seeing my wallet get thinner. But when you find a good deal, it's very exciting. It's like almost thrilling. And everyone can benefit from saving money. Even, dare I say, the richest people can. So I just want to say, I should clarify that this segment isn't really about specific deals or sales in particular. I want this to be a kind of universal guide to navigating the end of year sale season. So no matter which country you're in, I'd like the information to be helpful to anyone and everyone, but especially queer people. We'll talk about tips, secrets, and cheat codes, if you will, like legal, of course. We're not encouraging stealing or theft or anything like that, or even piracy. For finding not just cheap games, but games that you actually want to play on the console or system that you want to play them on. I also want to clarify that if you can, supporting indie games at full price is always a good thing, especially smaller indie developers that are queer and or BIPOC. It's not always possible to do that, and I totally understand that. This guide is helpful for all types of games, but very specifically important for taking advantage of AAA games from big corporations that, generally speaking, they don't care about you or your money, or that, well, they care about you, but they don't really care about you. They only care about your money. So taking advantage of deals from companies like Ubisoft, Activision, Nintendo, famous for treating their customers and in some cases their employees like shit, is always ethically correct. But always remember that indie developers are even sometimes just a single person and should not be treated with the same disdain with which we treat a corporation. So just keep the human in mind when you're taking advantage of things. And obviously, indie developers put their games on sale, and it's totally cool to take advantage of that. Just, don't pirate an indie game, or, don't, if you can afford to buy the game at a slightly higher price, if you can, please do so, because it supports someone like you who's just like, they're sitting in their room on their computer making games or making art, and it's pretty relatable. So I'm going to start with a couple things that I do in terms of trying to take advantage of deals, and Amy Squared, you guys can jump in whenever you feel like you have something to say or you have a response or anything. Just like feel free to just cut me off and like jump right into it, because I have like a long list of things to talk about and like tips, and I'm sure you both do as well. And even if they're not, I know Amy Lynn, we talked about patient gaming and like being picky, and like that's also a totally valid like method of like both saving money and getting what you want. So like just like jump right in whenever you feel comfortable. But I'll start off with the thing that I do. This first thing that I always do when I want a game that I don't plan on buying at full price, like a Nintendo game that I want to play right away, for example, is to set a goal price in mind for the game that I want and wait until it hits that price. So last year, Forspoken came out, and I really wanted to support that game, but I had so much to play, and I was like a little skeptical because the reviews were super mixed, and I was also worried that like it was really hard to separate people who hated the game because they were really, really racist versus people who didn't like the game because it was short, for example. And like, is like one thing coloring the other or vice versa? So I decided I have so much to play. It's also like a big game from Square Enix, so I wasn't super guilty about like waiting. And I said, like, I'm going to wait for Forspoken to hit $20. And within 12 months, it hit $20. I ordered it. I got it super cheap. I'm just sad to admit I still have not played it, but I did get it for the deal that I wanted. When it started off at $80 Canadian, I got it for $20. And right now, for example, I'm also waiting for Star Wars Outlaws to hit $40. So, anyway, basically what I do is like, and this, I'll get into this a bit more later, but I turn on notifications for any of the websites that sell these games for that price, if and when it's possible. So like on Twitter, there are deal trackers like Wario64 in the US, Al Babbins in Canada, and I'm sure in other countries and other places locally there are people like them that list deals as soon as they go live, so you can take advantage of something, especially if it's a physical copy that might sell out.
Yeah, with if I might jump in, with Al Babbins especially, he's been or the prices and the deals that he posts have been especially helpful for me, and for people who are in Canada, really helpful. It's funny that you mentioned Forspoken, because the I can think of a deal story that I had which related to a deal that Al Babbins put up, because I was also in the same mindset of, well, I might wait a bit for this one, but I was really interested in it because I liked the demo quite a bit, but I know that there was so much, I just heard wave after wave of just bad press, I guess, about the game, and I was just like, I don't know, like, I still want to give it a shot because I like the demo. And Al Babbins, I think, had posted like a super flash GameStop, I don't know, deal, which was literally the game for $10, and I went, oh my god. And I remember I was able to get in on that, and I just picked it up the same day at GameStop, which I was like, this is crazy. I've never spent so little on like a new game, which, I mean, a game that maybe isn't selling very well, but yeah, it was just, I do really fully support Al Babbins' stuff.
Yeah, and some of these too, I think Wario64 and Al Babbins, I think they make a little bit of money off when you click their aggregate links. I don't think that's a bad thing. As far as I can tell, these people are not corporations, but they were just like Twitter people, or like they were used to be people like you and me who were just posting the odd deal on Twitter, and then suddenly they realized they were getting clicks, and they were taking advantage of that. And I think people should make money wherever they can, because they're making the money off like Amazon, for example. When you click the link, they're not making the money off you. You're not paying extra because you clicked the Al Babbins or Wario64 link. It's just Amazon is giving them a little bit of money for advertising for them, for example. So, so another thing I like to do is, like I said, like I like to keep a goal price in mind. But another way to do that is to make wish lists and use price trackers. So on Nintendo Switch, there's a great website called Deku Deals that they track physical game sales and digital game sales on the eShop. PS Prices, which is a great app for PlayStation. It's a little full of ads, but like if you can, and they do try to want you to pay for like a subscription, like a premium model to use other features. But realistically speaking, it's great for notifications and it's great for just like having a wish list, because I think PlayStation doesn't actually have a great wish list. For Xbox, there's xbdeals.net. And then for Steam, this is the big one. I think everyone should know this one for sure, is SteamDB. Nintendo and Xbox also have wish lists, and they will send you emails when something you want on your wish list goes on sale. But with Nintendo and Xbox, their own wish list, they don't actually give you anything about the price history. They won't be like, well, this is the lowest it's ever been, or like you'd have to manually track that yourself. Whereas Deku Deals, PS Prices, XB Deals, and SteamDB, they have like a little chart that shows you the last time this game went low to a low price. They tell you like what the lowest price was, how often it goes on sale. Like they tell you, they have a lot of information, which is good for just like getting the best bang for your buck and like knowing when a game is going to be super cheap. And again, I think I mentioned earlier that, yeah, some of these apps also track physical game sales. I don't think XB Deals tracks physical. PS Prices definitely does not. SteamDB obviously doesn't track physical sales because they're tracking Steam, but Deku Deals for Switch, they do track physical deals for Nintendo games and even like limited run stuff. And they've actually started adding other websites too. So like you start off with just like Amazon and Best Buy. Now I think they have like Walmart, GameStop, and maybe I could be misremembering. In fact, I'm going to check right now, but I think they might even have Video Games Plus or PNP Games. And we'll talk a little bit more about them later, but I'm just like checking here. Let's see, Rayman Legends is on sale here on this website. So, oh yeah, so actually, yeah, they have PNP and VGP on their website, and they're tracking them too. And they also have the Humble Store, and we will talk more about that later too. But, and I assume probably depending on which country you're in, they might even have different stores they're tracking. Let's see here, actually. I'll try the United Kingdom because I'll be able to identify. Yeah, so they have Amazon.uk, they have Argos, they have Game, which is their equivalent to GameStop. And when I say GameStop too, in Canada it used to be called EB Games. It's now GameStop here, but I think in Australia it's still called EB Games, but it's all the same company, one big corporation. Also in Canada, we have Red Flag Deals. I won't get too into it, but they don't just track video games, but it's just like a big website, like forum that like tracks Canadian deals. And I think they do have a gaming section. But another way that I really like to save money when possible, and it's a bit expensive on the outset, but like it pays off in the long term. But if you have access to like Costco or maybe other third-party websites that like look a little bit sketchier and can be sketchier for sure, I'm not going to specify too many of what these websites are because I don't use them very often, but there are websites where you can get like deals on gift cards. But Costco is like the big one, and I know you have to have like a paid membership to Costco. You have to buy $100 gift card to save like, let's say $10 to $15, maybe $20 during the holidays. But basically it's free money if you can afford the initial buy-in. If you buy a $100 gift card for $80, that's $20 extra towards a game that you didn't actually have to spend any money on. I know they do Nintendo gift cards and PlayStation gift cards. They also have deals on like Game Pass. They have deals on PS Plus. I think just the base PS Plus though, not like premium.
Yeah, if we're talking about websites too, another that I have had some just general success and a good experience with generally is Kinguin, kinguin.net. They usually have some good deals that I'll check every now and again. Not just necessarily for games. I bought some of my PC parts from there as well. But yeah, I've had a couple of good situations where I'm like, oh yeah, this is a much better sale right now for this game than it is on Steam or just at Best Buy or something.
That's a great website. I've never even heard of this. This is cool. You've been holding out on me for how many years, Amy?
A year, I guess, because I only learned about it a year ago.
Fair. Okay. You're forgiven. Okay. And we've also talked about this a little bit earlier too, but buying physical games on deep discount and clearance when possible. So like GameStop, EB Games, Walmart, Best Buy, JB Hi-Fi, local big box stores, Amazon, Video Games Plus, PNP Games. So I'll detail those in a second though, but I know that these are big corporations and I don't generally want to be the kind of person that like recommends them, but like being honest, a lot of people do shop there because we save money and we want to save money even though we're supporting a terrible corporation, because sometimes we're just trying to get by. But honestly, taking advantage of places that sell video games cheap and not spending any other money there too, if possible, is like it's morally correct. If GameStop, like I don't really love supporting GameStop, especially in Canada where they're like kind of like a shell of what they're like in the US now. But if there's a game you want and it's on sale there, like it's morally correct to take advantage of it. So I recommend that you do. Your enjoyment, your happiness are sometimes just as important as, say, like the moral responsibility to do something. And again, this is a gray area, so I'll stop talking about this too much. But these big box stores, they have a sale, take advantage. But we were talking about Video Games Plus and PNP Games in Canada. They're Canadian stores, but they ship worldwide, as far as I know. At least Video Games Plus does for sure. And I think PNP Games does as well. I think I saw that last night. But basically, they're like GameStop and like, yeah, basically, they're basically GameStop on steroids. So they have physical stores. The Video Games Plus store in Toronto is fairly small, but it's a great shop. Like they have a lot of variety and a lot of selection. And PNP Games is in Winnipeg, and I think they have a few shops there. But they also have big warehouses where they ship a lot of like, especially imported games. Like they're super good about like recently Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl 2 came out. And on Switch last year when it came out physically, it was just a code in the box. And recently they released a version with a cartridge in it. And on their website, they have two listings. They have the digital code and they have the cartridge version, and it specifies exactly what it is. They ship worldwide. They sell limited run games. Like multiple times this year, they've restocked Persona 3 and 4 that came from limited run on Switch. And I think also Xbox and PlayStation, but Switch seems to be the popular one that sells out really quick. They've restocked those multiple times. I know that like there's a like basically they've had every limited run game that you can possibly buy that limited run has allowed selling from outside their website. They sell Japanese and Asia imports. A lot of these games are region free now, so like they're this big hub that sells games for a reasonable price. They have lots of sales. Sometimes the only downside is like their free shipping threshold is a little high. But I also did read that VGP, Video Games Plus, is trying to find a solution for that. And PNP Games did lower theirs from $80 to $65. And if a game is $64.99 or $64.95, they generally give you a little coupon code to like that bumps you up to the $65 threshold. So also they're super responsive on social media. They're very friendly with their customers. Their customer service is really good. Anytime I've like sent them an email saying like, hey, I know your website says you don't change an address or update a thing or whatever. Can you please do it? And they're always so friendly. So support these. They're like quote unquote small businesses that have like inflated and grown a bit, but they're like, they treat their customers like they're a small business. They're really friendly. Support them when you can, especially over big box stores like GameStop, EB Games. And I know, again, sometimes it's easier or nicer to just walk down to your local Walmart and pick up the game physically, or, you know, you don't want to wait, or like it's a Canadian site, or it's in a site in another country, so you don't want to pay the customs or whatever. I totally get that, but they're super great. Another website that's great is Play Asia. So if you want a lot of like, again, Asian imports like Japanese games, Play Asia ships worldwide. I've almost always been dinged with customs with Play Asia, at least here in Canada, and they ship, they do local shipping. You have to pay a lot more money to get like, I think something like UPS, for example. I'm not sure if they even do that because I'm so cheap. I never click that button, but they ship locally there. And then it's like, it's on a boat and then it gets shipped here by letter mail basically. So it takes a while, and generally Canada Post, when it gets here, they ding me with customs, and it's usually a little expensive, but really good if you want something like, I know recently the Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters did come out here with like a wide ESRB release, but before that happened, the only way to really get it was to order it from Play Asia. And VGP and PNP Games did have them, but they sold out so fast, Play Asia still had stock. I ordered from there. Weirdly enough, I ordered 2 copies, one for me, one for Graham, who was on the second episode, and I didn't get hit with customs, even though the order was quite expensive, but I ordered something that was half that price, and I got dinged this year. So just heads up on that.
That's fair. Yeah, in terms of a couple other websites that come to mind for like games that maybe you're looking for that maybe that are Japanese and have English support or something like that. Sometimes I've shopped at CD Japan. And like as in like CD compact disc, and they sell some games and different things there, and they usually do offer some points-based deals. Like, I think around your birthday, they'll give you a little bit of extra points if you're just like, oh, great. So you can save on the shipping a little bit if that's helpful. And then I've used another website called Yes Asia. And sometimes that's had good deals. Often I've used it for merchandise of different kinds, not necessarily games, but I have seen games sold on that store as well.
There's also Mecha Japan too. I don't think they're as big on video games, but they do have a lot of stuff that's video game adjacent, especially like if you're big into like Japanese games. So like they'll have like a lot of Final Fantasy and Pokemon and like Sonic merch and stuff like that. So
nice.
But Ekami, we've been talking a lot. I want to hear from Amy and Lynn.
So, as you kind of implied, I have an unorthodox strategy for saving with a video game hobby, and that is to buy less games. And the other, way to explain that is getting older and not being as interested. But it's interesting, like, I still consider gaming one of my hobbies, but I would say that it's secondary to maybe my art-related interests or comic-related interests and things like that. So, compared to when I was in undergrad or just, I guess, my early adulthood, I'm playing a lot less games, at least throughout the year. I think the last time that I played a game reliably daily for a long period of time was when Splatoon 2 was out. And I loved the world of Splatoon. I loved the aesthetics. I loved the music. The gameplay was really fun and interesting. Like, it felt good to play. So I played that for months and months, like probably like a year or more after it came out. But aside from that, like, I'll play when a new Zelda releases. I didn't buy the latest one, but, the big 3D releases, I'll play those for 60 or 70 hours, however long it takes. The new Pokemon, I tend to try to play those throughout. As mentioned a few weeks ago, if a new big Sonic game comes out, things like that. A lot of Nintendo games, Kirby I'll always get into, but I'm not someone who plays, games every day aside from, something like Pokemon Go. So, I do, I'm a little bit more picky, I guess. I'm still excited for a bunch of games, like the new Deltarune chapter. Once it's finished, I'm excited to play what's next from Toby Fox in the Deltarune saga. I'm excited for whenever Pokemon ZA comes out. But aside from that, like, I see what other people are playing. The mysterious, what was it, Sorry We're Closed that Ekami mentioned. That was an incredibly intriguing game that I might look into. So I'm looking for games that interest me, especially from, queer lenses or creative different type of approaches. So by kind of being more picky, I end up saving quite a bit. Another thing that you mentioned, Zoe, earlier on was, to try your best to buy games from indie creators at full price if you can. And I think one of my biggest trans women sins of all time is that I got Celeste for free on the Epic Games Store. And, I felt super guilty about that, but that announcement was what made me go I should probably finally play this. And, since then, I have bought, a lot of Celeste, merchandise, or at least some. And I promote Celeste at every chance I have, right now. So, listen to podcasts like this one, see what games are interested and progressive and unique. Find people on social media that you relate to. If you are, big into another hobby like drawing or sports or something, find someone who also plays games, see what they're into, and, maybe you'll get really good advice. I do also like the, if you do buy, if you get something for free or super on sale, promote the game. Any indie developer is going to be so thrilled that you are talking about the game, even if you have 15 followers or less, but especially if you have more than 100. talk about the game, say why you like it, say why you love a certain character. I've been following, I think it's an indie game. It was a Kickstarter I didn't back, but I've been following, called Billy Bust Up, which is like a platformer music game that I was like in the top 2% at one point, streaming the one song they released. And that was exciting. And these developers and creators are going to interact with you for the most part. I'm not guaranteeing they will, especially if you're a jerk, but there's so many ways to like interact and be immersed with this industry and this hobby, even if you're not playing a new game every week. And kind of like the people who cosplay Harley Quinn without reading too many comics or seeing the animated series. I don't think that there's any good or bad way to be a gamer if you're earnest about it and coming at it with an open mind and heart. Hopefully that was somewhat understandable.
Well, you mentioned the Epic Game Store free games, and I'm not sure if it's the case with Epic. I can't guarantee it because I don't know for sure, but I have to assume it might be. But I know on PlayStation Plus, when they give out a free game, even though you've paid for the subscription, so technically it's not free, whenever they give out a game like that, I think they've paid the publisher a lot of money to make that game available to users for free. So I have to hope that when they made Celeste free on the Epic Game Store to everyone, they had paid the Celeste developers a lot of money to do so. So even if you did claim it for free, hopefully they at least got money from Epic for that. Especially since Epic is known for dumping tons of money into their store to get people to actually go to their store, because Steam is so prolific and honestly better. I'm sorry, but Epic, it's Steam it's been around for so long that Epic had to do a lot of things to get people's attention. So I think they have they probably spent a lot of money to make all these games free, and some of them have been pretty big games. I know they gave away Alien Isolation multiple years in a row. And that couldn't have been cheap, because you have to keep Disney happy. You have to keep the developers happy, the publisher. So hopefully, Celeste made some money off that, even though you didn't spend any. And you've been promoting it, and that's a good thing too. And the same energy of that too is I have one more point about when you buy games on discount is support your local video game store. And I say this about card shops too. You can buy stuff from Amazon, you can buy stuff from wherever, but if you live somewhere that has a local video game store, go in and make friends with the people that work there. Chances are the person behind the counter is the owner. And just you don't have to be the most personable person, but spending a little bit of money there, going in, browsing, saying hi. If they have social media, there's a store here in Toronto that I go to, and I always... Their hours are not super great, admittedly, but they're a small business, so I understand that. But they're only open for 6 hours of the day, and it's when I'm working. So when I'm going, I make a big point to make sure they might have something that I really want to buy. But whenever they know me to the point now, especially because I'm transgender, and I feel that probably makes me a little more notable than other people in terms of memorability. So I just message them on Facebook, and I just send them a quick message saying hey, I saw that you might have this game, or I'm wondering if you have this game, and if so, can you hold it for me? And if just be nice to people. No one's asking you to go in and make a new best friend right off the bat, but just go in and support those businesses. And if there's a sale, or there's something you want, or there's some limited edition game that you want, and they're only gonna have a few copies, they might favor you.
I know.
And that's
I know that.
Yeah.
I know
Sorry,
that this was, really, what you said really reminded me when the sort of local Toronto Pokemon store, Banana Games, first opened. I went back, I went there pretty soon after it opened, and for the first couple times I went, they remembered my name, which was really, again, it might be the trans factor a little bit, but also they probably didn't have a whole lot of customers at that point, but the fact that they remembered my name was really cool at the time. And just yesterday I went to a card and comic shop. I was looking for an issue of something that my local, or my usual comic store sold out of. And I went on a huge journey to like 5 different places. And when I finally found it, like the person at the counter was so friendly that like, even though I was buying just one single issue of a comic, like it made me want to go back there. Like, I don't know, you know, why I would have the need to, but it made me want to shop there if I ever did. Like, it was such a great experience. So it makes like a huge difference both for you and for the store itself.
Yeah, and especially too, even if you're buying like that $3 thing, or you're buying like the mainstream $80 AAA game on release day that they're not making a lot of money off of, like that's still better than buying it from Amazon.
Yeah. In the same vein, talking about just like support and good experiences for video game devs, some really good experiences that I've had when I would buy a game, either it would be on, sometimes it'd be on sale, sometimes like because I stream, there is like some off chances sometimes that some devs are really nice, and some of them will reach out and they'll be like, hey, would you like to try our game for free? And I feel like I'm really like humbled by that, but I feel bad because I want to spend money, obviously. But anyway, sometimes that'll happen. And there have been 2 really like lovely experiences from with that I've had with indie devs in a similar situation with that, when I would stream. I think the first time, I talked about it a bit last week on last week's episode, when I streamed Arcade Spirits. I just heard really good things about the game, and there was a slight sale, so I thought, yeah, you know, that's within my budget, I'll buy it. And I remember one of the developers just coming into the chat and just talking to me, and I was like, oh my god, like I felt like I was with a celebrity, because I was like, this is insane. How, like, they found me by looking up the game category, or like maybe I advertised it on Twitter, but you know, since then I'm like, well, now that I've had this really good experience, like, and I just like the game generally, like, I really want to support other games that they've made. So now usually like Amy Lynn was saying, I'm also pretty particular about, like, you know, being selective, I guess, of the games that are within my budget and that interest me enough, because I also don't have a ton of times to play games normally. Like, I just mostly make time to stream games usually. But I try to keep an eye out for, like, because I had that really nice experience, I want to try other games that they've made. And with In Stars and Time, for example, like, that was a game that I believe the developer might have partnered with an organization who specifically, like, works with devs to promote Steam keys for their games. And again, I would also hope that they would have given Insert Disc 5, the developer, some money for that. But I played it, I streamed it, and I was like, this is a phenomenal indie game. I really, really liked it. I remember going onto like Instagram and like into like a group chat with you, Zoe, and being like, I can't say enough good things about this game. It's really good. You should give it a shot if it's within your budget bracket. And like afterwards I was like, yeah, I'm going to buy a bunch of merch. I'm going to cosplay one of the characters, which was like, I hadn't been inspired to cosplay a character for years at that point. And it was a really special moment that again came from maybe being a little bit selective, but at the same time, just having a really nice experience for the whole thing. So yeah, I would definitely recommend like what everybody on this podcast has been saying of just like, reaching out to your local game store, or like expressing to if you know like the dev's social media handle, just expressing how much you enjoyed the game. And I feel like it's really special. And also not only obviously like the writers and artists, but the composers, because I felt like some of the best experiences that I've also had is like if I'm just like, you know, playing a video game and I'm like, wow, the soundtrack is incredible, like who is the composer? And I would look them up, and like every time they're so sweet. Every composer that I've talked to is just like the sweetest person. I don't like it just happens. But yeah.
Just to show the effectiveness of this approach, so I didn't listen to the last episode of this podcast, and
how dare you?
I'm just hearing about this game now, but Ekami's like, you know, story of how impactful that developer was, and the title alone, like, it made me just quickly on my phone just search it and read the premise and all the praise that Ekami talked about this. I'm like, this is like the most excited I've been for a game in like a long time, so I'm going to buy it in the next few days.
Wonderful.
Just from like that personal story and like the context of like a premise where arcades are still a thing. Like, this is the life I wish I was living. Like, it's like this, it sounds incredible. So like, just as far as like the effectiveness goes, great job. A combination of you and Arcade Spirits, I guess.
Oh, lovely. No, it's so good. There's I think the devs made at least 2 other games that I know of. One is kind of like a sort of, not really a sequel, but it's in the same world as Arcade Spirits, called The New Challengers. And then I believe their other game that I have yet to play is called is it Penny Larceny Super Gig Villain or something? It's very silly. But yeah, I want to play that one too.
Now, I did say we wouldn't talk about specific sales, like specific deals. Like, I'm not going to tell you that Tears of the Kingdom is finally going on sale this Black Friday. It's definitely part of Nintendo. I'm definitely not going to tell you that it's part of Nintendo's
what, really?
List of 10 games that's going on sale. But generally speaking, Black Friday sales are happening in the next few weeks. In some cases, they've already started, like on VGP, Video Games Plus, and PMP Games. They've already started. They're adding daily deals. But with Black Friday sales, there's like bundles on Humble. There's bundles on Fanatical. There's bundles on itch.io. Nintendo has a Black Friday sale. They also have like an eShop sale too. That's and it always starts in Europe first. So like if it started in Europe, that everything that's on sale in Europe, or most of the games that are on sale in Europe, will go on sale in North America a week later. I can't speak for other markets, unfortunately. Sony, they have a sale of like physical stuff. Like, they'll have controllers, like Nintendo will. They'll have games, like a certain list of games, controllers, hardware, console discounts, stuff like that. But then they'll also have a digital game sale. Xbox, exactly the same thing. Steam has 2 sales over the course of the winter, or at least like the holidays. So they have the autumn sale, which starts on November 27th and runs until December 4th. The winter sale, though, is the really big one, with lots of games on sale, and usually for the lowest price of the year, not always. And that's from December 19th to January 2nd. In recent years, they have started announcing the dates well in advance, so it's nice to know when these games are going to go on sale. With Steam especially, I want to note that if a game goes on sale right before the big autumn sale, so like, or the winter sale, like if it's a week before and like the game you want is on sale, chances are it will not be on sale during the winter sale. And if it is, it's either going to be the same price or higher. So just keep that in mind. So if there's something you want and it's like, oh, it's 30% off, but I was hoping for 40%, I'll wait a week and see. Chances are, and I think for Steam you can see how long it'll be on sale for, but chances are, they're putting it on sale a week ahead, so they kind of get past all the white noise of the big sale, so you'll actually pay attention to their game before you've spent a lot of your money for the holidays, or you're like focused on like, oh yeah, I really wanted this indie game, but oh, this big AAA game is on sale, and the indie game is on sale before, and you're like, but it'll still be on sale in a week, right? So they're just trying to drown out some of the noise and get ahead of things by putting their game on sale early. So if you do see a game on sale in a week or so before the winter sale starts, it might be a good idea to consider jumping on it then. And the other thing too is like, there's the autumn sale and there's the winter sale for Steam. Sony, Nintendo, Xbox, all these stores with digital codes and digital copies of games, they have sales all the time. If you miss out now, and like, don't worry, like games go on sale all the time. There are always sales on games. Stuff, and like sometimes it's not even like a big store wide, like, oh yeah, we're discounting 1,000 games this week, here's the sale. Like sometimes like a dev just wants to drop a game in price, whether it's a AAA game or an indie game or somewhere in between. Just pay attention to your price trackers, your wish lists, your alerts, your notifications. There are sales all year. You don't have to buy stuff right now. It's just the opportune time to do so. People are spending money for the holidays. Maybe you've been saving up. Maybe you want to gift something to someone. Gifting games is kind of hard. Steam makes it easy. Sony and Nintendo make it friggin' difficult. But yeah, so don't feel pressured to buy, and don't feel pressured because stuff's on sale that you should buy it if you can't afford it either. Like, games go on sale all the time, and especially if you just want digital games. Like, yeah, sometimes you gotta rush for a physical copy of something. Like Nintendo randomly takes stuff out of print. Like they released a new Paper Mario, so the old one is now out of print because they don't want both Paper Mario games on the shelves confusing people. They want people to buy the new big one. I think the only time they don't do this is with Mario Party, and maybe Breath of the Wild. But other games, like for a while there, Xenoblade 2 was hard to find because Xenoblade 3 came out, for example. So maybe have some FOMO if it's a physical game and it's on sale. But if it's a digital game, there is no shortage of codes for those. There's no shortage of copies. It's digital. You can get it whenever you feel comfortable, whenever you can afford it. I mentioned earlier hardware sales like consoles and controllers. There are other ways to look at price history for that. It's a little bit more difficult. It's a little bit more sketchy, but there's places like Camel for Amazon. I think Walmart and Best Buy have third-party price trackers. You can also search through like for L-Babins and Wario 64, you can search for the specific model of console or controller you're looking at to see when that was last on sale through various tweets and how low it went. And also too, with the Nintendo holiday sales where they like put their own games in bundles or discounts, and Sony and Xbox do the same thing. Also check stores like local stores or big box stores. Sometimes they make their own bundles. They'll either discount them or they'll put gift cards in for their own store. So, you're not saving an extra $50, but you're getting a $50 gift card to spend in store. So you can buy another game maybe or another controller. Sometimes they'll pack in other games. They'll be like, oh, here's the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe bundle for the 18th billionth time in the last 20 years. That's now Nintendo's big holiday bundle.
Yeah.
You'll go to a store, but they'll also give you another digital code or another physical copy of another Mario game to go with it. And it'll be like $50 instead of $80, and that'll be part of the bundle too. Or they'll give you an extra controller and you don't have to buy it. There are also discounts on subscriptions that have game libraries. So like Game Pass and PS Plus Premium generally go on sale for a little bit. It hasn't been as good in the last couple of years as it was like pre-pandemic, unfortunately. But that stuff will go on sale too. You don't get to keep those games, but you can still play them, obviously. But there are things like Humble Choice. I don't know if they discount Humble Choice subscriptions, but there are subscriptions where you get like 10 Steam keys for 10 various games of various degrees of intensity of development. So like AAA versus indie games, stuff like that is what I'm trying to say. But Humble Choice is there, and they let you keep the keys. And we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, and this is my last point personally. And if anyone wants to cut me off and jump in before I dive into my last point, feel free. I know I ramble and I steamroll through people, so I'm sorry. But the last thing too is like patient gaming. Okay, there's a whole subreddit for patient gamers. Okay, and like waiting years for a big game to drop to a low price is also completely valid. So like, I haven't played Mass Effect Legendary Edition, and it's actually gone on sale for the price point I want a bunch of times, but because it keeps going on sale for a low price, I've been putting it off. But when that game came out, it was $80 Canadian for a trilogy of 3 remastered games. But now it's usually, when it's on sale, it's like $10 to $12. So like, it came out 3 years ago and it's already on deep discount. I waited like years for The Witcher 3 to go down in price, and they're like just a big, and again, I'm not saying this for indie games for sure. Like that's entirely your prerogative if you want to do that for indie games, if they even drop that low. But yeah, like big AAA games that cost like games are reaching $100 now. Like if you want to buy a full price game in Canada for Xbox, PlayStation, or in the case of Tears of the Kingdom full price, like it's like $100 now for a game with tax. That's like 90s level expensive when games were actually like really, really expensive. So like, if you don't need to play a game right away, it's completely valid to just like wait however many years, and then you get the game patched, bug-free, potentially with extra content, DLC bundled in for like a fraction of the cost that it was when it came out buggy without certain content. So like right now, the game that I'm really waiting patiently for, and this makes me a bad queer, but I'm waiting for Baldur's Gate 3 because I really want to support the developers. I do. But also it's a massive, massive game. And I know the second I install it and I start playing it, I will not go to work. So I'm waiting for that game to drop in price, mainly because, and even if I decide in a few years I want to play it, maybe I'll buy it at full price. But the point I'm making here is that like, I'm going to wait. So if I'm going to wait, I might as well wait for a sale maybe. But like $80 Canadian for a game like that, even though it's worth $80, I think, in the amount of content and the value of it, and the fact that it's supporting queer developers and a queer game, like it's such a big game too that I'm not in a hurry to play it. So
yeah, I've often felt similarly in terms of just waiting and seeing a lot of sales for several of the Assassin's Creed games. I usually see a lot of digital sales for those games. Nothing that I've really necessarily jumped at because it's not really a series of games that I want to immediately get into, but at some point, I might. And something that also that I also sometimes keep in mind is if there is a game that has a deluxe edition or a special edition, like usually when I come across that, they usually increase the price by, I don't know, maybe like $30 to, well, sometimes over $100, but usually it's like $30 to $50 more. And sometimes I'm like, well, if I really want that game, like that would be great to have a deluxe edition. But a good experience that I had relating to a deluxe edition was actually with Baldur's Gate 3, because I was waiting for a long time. We were waiting, my partner and I were waiting for it to come to console, and because a lot of our friends were playing on PC, and I could play on PC, but I wanted to play on PlayStation. And so when it was announced that it would come to PlayStation, I was like, okay, well, maybe the price is still pretty hefty for like a normal game, so maybe I'll wait a bit. But interestingly, their deluxe edition, which comes with, I have to remember right now, it came with stickers, an art book, a poster, a CD soundtrack, a nice case, generally just like things that could fit in a nicely packaged box, not like a big figure or anything. That deluxe edition with all of that was also priced at $79.99 on the Larian website. And I went, hold on, like my mind might have changed slightly now, because I'm getting the deluxe edition contents for basically the same price minus maybe shipping. So for that then convinced my partner and I to be like, you know what, that feels like a deal to us, because half the time if I'm like looking to get a special edition or a deluxe edition of like, I don't know, like the Xenoblade Definitive Edition, like I was like, well, I definitely am going to be throwing down $120, and I know that I am, so I had to save for that. But yeah, sometimes stuff like that can be a nice little surprise in terms of like saving, not necessarily, well, maybe money in a sense, but more so like think about like, oh, what would you consider to be a deal as well?
Yeah, a deal is different for everyone too.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
Amy Lynn.
Yeah, I don't think I have any more additional thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I have one question to ask. We kind of already touched on this a little bit, but I'm curious what games are on your wish list. What are you hoping to pick up this holiday, if any?
Well, I still, I haven't yet picked up Plucky Squire, so I might still do that at some point. Apparently now Arcade Spirits, although that might be more the next couple weeks rather than holidays. So aside from that, the holidays are actually when I tend to sometimes get physical games as gifts from people. So, potentially that will happen. So nothing I really have to think about. Or there'll be the times where I will be picking up games for others. But so far, nothing else really on the list.
Akemi?
I am very much looking forward to the Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, because I really want to play it, as well as I want to probably get the Mario and Luigi Brothership, the RPG game, because I quite like that one. Those are like, I guess, the main two games that I'm hoping maybe might be gifted maybe to me during the holidays, or maybe if I could use some gift cards for that. Yeah, I think those are actually, and one other one. I recently played a demo for a game called Small Saga, which is not necessarily a new game. I think it released maybe about a year ago. But I played the demo for it and was so charmed. And I learned that it was actually one of the main developer of it was also developed another game that I really liked, which is a totally different genre. This one's like an RPG, and the other one was a point-and-click mystery Ace Attorney kind of game called Aviary Attorney, which was hilarious and wonderful. Yeah, so I'd say those three games are like big on my list.
Well, I have a bunch of stuff on my wish list. Like, hundreds of games. I know some people have bigger wish lists, and my wish list kind of spreads out across a bunch of things. And I generally don't buy everything that's on my wish list. I look when I see all the sales go down, and if there's something I really want or I see a really low price. But maybe this holiday season is the time to just support a few indie developers with a few full price games, because let's be real, no matter what games I pick up, I'm only gonna have time to play so many. And I've talked about a bunch on the podcast that I've started, and yes, my PS5 has still been hijacked. So I have not been able to finish the games that I've been playing on that, but those are what I really want to finish. So maybe it's just time to support a few indie developers. Maybe I'm not so as keen on Arcade Spirits, but In Stars in Time, which we've talked about, I'm curious about that. I really want to play it, but I'm a little conflicted because Limited Run is doing a physical copy.
Yeah,
and
I just heard about that.
I might want that.
It looks real nice.
Yeah, and if I'm being honest about Limited Run, I think they have issues with the way they treat their customers. I think they take sometimes too long with very little communication about when they're getting the stuff to their customers. But also, they do really nice work when they do finally get the game to you, and they are supporting a lot of indie developers by giving them physical limited editions. And especially too if a game has some replayability or it's really long, like it has a good how long to beat time, I think it's worth getting a physical. I think if it's a game that's only 2 or 3 hours, a physical copy doesn't feel as valuable to me, only because I don't know how many times I'm going to play it, and physical games take up shelf space. But I think In Stars in Time is the one that I really want to try, but now I'm so conflicted because I was just going to buy it digital, and then like a week ago, right after we talked about it, they said, we're doing a physical version on Switch, and I'm like, that's my kryptonite, physical copy on Switch. I love collecting for the Switch, so.
Yeah, I will say, I think my playtime for that game was around just over 30 hours. And yes, it is
That's worth it. No, why did you tell me that? No,
I know. Now, it is a time loop, so a lot of it is you're replaying kind of the same thing, but there is differences in dialogue. That's just the game. But yes, it was about 30 hours, and there's probably going to be more announcements for the game too, in terms of merch and different things that are releasing, because I've been following the dev, and they've been talking about basically it's been about a year since the game released, so as a birthday anniversary thing, they're releasing, I think, a bit of news each week for the month or something. So yeah.
Fair. Well, see, the replay, I accept that it's more like a time loop game, that a lot of it's just quote unquote always replayable in that sense, but I think the story is interesting enough. Then if it's a 30-hour game time, I think for an RPG like that, it's especially an indie game like that, I think it might be worth supporting it, even if I'm also supporting Limited Run.
Yeah, I also would say if you are interested, Limited Run for sure, I would say support the physical. There is a prologue game that came before In Stars in Time that was kind of like a alpha version of the game, but it is different. It's just same characters, same general story, but different situation. And it's called, I can send you it. It's called Start Again, a prologue. And that's really nice to get into it, to be it's nice to be okay, it's a little, it's something that I think usually goes more on sale, and it's something to be a taste of how you might like the game. And it's great because it does lead into, I've been told, the true ending for In Stars in Time, which is what I'm currently going for right now.
Well, I appreciate that. Actually, I've already looked it up, and
I
think I might just buy it at full price, because it's not super expensive compared to the main game, but also it's supporting an indie dev.
Yeah.
But we are out of time. I want to get everyone to where they need to go, but I do want to ask where people can find you if you'd like to be found on social media. We'll start with Ekami.
Sure. You can find me on Twitch and YouTube, just at Ekami, so Ekamy, as well as for social media, mostly Blue Sky and Instagram.
Cool. Amy Lynn, I know you're a little more private, and I can also cut this too. But
no worries. My public accounts, usually you can find me at Amethyst Lilac, but there's more Y's in there than you would think.
So that wraps up this week's show. Thanks for joining me for another episode of True Avatars, a queer video game podcast. If you've made it this far into the episode, I really appreciate you taking the time to support queer-made content, which is a big deal. It's been really fun working to bring this podcast to you. I know not every piece of news is queer-themed, and not every segment is queer-specific, but I do my best to bring queer voices on every week to discuss what's relevant in video games. I hope you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at WildZoeAppears. I also have a YouTube channel, Wild Zoe Appeared. which is currently kind of dead since I haven't posted in a year and a half, but I am trying to rebuild my social media presence, and this podcast is just the start. Importantly, if you or anyone you know is queer and involved with video games in some way, please don't hesitate to reach out. I would really love to hear from more queer voices in video games and have them on the podcast. Your voice is unique and valid and worth sharing with the world. And if you don't want to be on the show or know anyone who's interested, but you know about a cool queer video game or games industry story that's queer related, please let me know. Things are tough out there, and queer people need to stick together when we can. And one last thing before we say goodbye, this is just a reminder that it is currently Transgender Awareness Week until Tuesday, November 19th, and then Transgender Day of Remembrance is on Wednesday, November 20th. Please remember to check in on your trans friends, especially with the current political climate and state of the world. So Ekami, Amy Lynn, thank you so much for joining me this week.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Bye, True Avatars. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to speaking with you all again next week. Take care and stay safe.